Thank you all so much for coming. We have a very special evening for all of you tonight. My name is Amy Nolan, and I am a representative of the Department of Languages, Literatures, and Cultural Studies. And we are very, very happy tonight to be welcoming spoken word poet David Romero. And I'd like to give out a thank you as well to also the Slife Professorship in the Humanities, represented by Dr. Zach Montgomery, and the group Salsa, as well as the Castle, the literary magazine. So thank you to all of our sponsors tonight. And we'll go ahead and get started. So David Romero is a Mexican-American spoken word artist from Diamond Bar, California. Romero is the author of My Name Is Romero, published by FlowerSong Press, a book reviewed by Gustavo Arellano, Curtis Marez, and Ulises Bella. Romero has appeared at over 75 colleges and universities in 30 different states in the United States. Romero's work has been published in literary magazines in the United States, England, and Canada. Romero has opened for Latin Grammy-winning bands Ozomatli and La Santa Cecilia. Romero's work has been published in anthologies alongside poets laureate Joy Harjo, Lawrence Ferlinghetti, Luis J. Rodriguez, Jack Hirschman, and Tongo Eisen-Martin. Romero has won the Uptown Slam at the historic Green Mill in Chicago, the birthplace of slam poetry. Romero offers a scholarship for high school seniors interested in spoken word and social justice, the Romero Scholarship for Excellence in Spoken Word. Romero's poetry deals with family, identity, social justice issues, and Latinx culture. Please welcome David A. Romero.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Nolan, so much. And is it Dr. Montgomery as well for welcoming me today? It is a pleasure and honor, okay, great, to be with you all today. So today we're going to be having a workshop, Use Your Allusions. But before we get into that, I decided that some of you might be here just to hear poetry. I'm not sure. But if that is the case, I'm going to give you some right off the top. So this first poem is a story of an undocumented student athlete. I was fortunate enough to have this poem featured on a YouTube channel, All Deaf Digital. It was the second video featured on that channel. It was featured on an internationally broadcasted commercial for the channel. So here we go. When life throws everything at you, don't drop the ball. Don't drop the ball. Blue 42, set, hike. A brown quarterback's fingers tighten around the white laces of a football. Roosevelt versus Garfield, they meet today upon an annual battleground where local legends spell rivalry in defensive and offensive formations. Upon this old field, in this dirty stadium, football sounds a lot like Boyle Heights, like East LA, like years of pride and history. Sounds like Roosevelt is in motion. Number 42, Miguel is with them, crossing the line of scrimmage, clad in red and yellow. His muscles tell a story. Miguel has always been running from La Migra, Las Placas. Everyone who wants to stop him, ask him, ¿Dónde están los papeles? Where are your papers? Miguel's too fast though. How fast? Too fast for borders, laws, checkpoints, dogs, too fast for fences, ditches, detention centers, and walls. Definitely too fast for the fool, unfortunate enough to be Dean up on him now, through it all, under the glare of stadium lights, past the cheering, booing, chanting, and screaming, through a maze of players like a beam of holy light. Miguel's vision is clear. He loves this game. It gives him focus, gave him purpose. Miguel will be defined by this moment. He knows this. No college will recruit him. His record doesn't really scream draft pick, but that's not the issue. Miguel never cared for politics. He just loved his coach, his team, this American game of football, his dream, to make a catch in the only important game that he could. Miguel will not score the winning touchdown. This game will be added to a losing record that will make for a losing season. There's so many reasons for Miguel to drop the ball. Walk out of the stadium, just another statistic. Undocumented student, faceless immigrant. There are so many reasons for Miguel to drop the ball. So as it spirals towards him, carrying the weight of a future unfathomable, he repeats to himself like a prayer, don't drop the ball, don't drop the ball. So he catches it like how he catches his diploma, like how he catches his degree, like how he catches the hand of his high school sweetheart, and they cross the threshold of that goal line together. He cradles the ball in his arms like it's on John, firstborn legal, firstborn free to pursue his dreams and not always be running. So damn hard. This is just one story from the East LA Classic. Roosevelt versus Garfield, just one game for Miguel of undocumented football. Thank you. All right. So our next poem is going to be it's a poem. It's called Micro Machines, and it's based upon the principle of microaggressions. Let's see here. So this is based upon a true story. When I was a child, I visited an art museum, went on a field trip, and I suggested, I asked the docent. I was talking to the docent, and I asked her, my uncle's paintings, being here, and I established who he might be, and after a little while, the docent kind of said, oh, he's Mexican, some to the effect of, oh, he's Mexican. No, he's not in here. You silly child. So this poem is called Micro Machines, and it deals with that. Mexican kid with the white skin and blue eyes knows a lot about art. This brings a smile to the white face of a museum docent. She asked the boy how he knows so much. The boy replies, my uncle is an artist. The boy says this without a hint of cynicism or derision. This to him is the greatest thing a person can be, an artist. The docent asked the boy, what's his name? Frank Romero. What does your uncle paint? Cars. He paints old cars. American cars from the 1920s through 50s, LA, palm trees, freeways, and familiar streets as the background, always bold in color with a zigzagged impasto stroke, the kind of thing you see that immediately makes you say, that's a Romero. The boy suggests to the docent, maybe he has something here. A pause from her then. There's an auto museum down the street. Maybe he has something there. No, that doesn't seem right. Maybe what you mean is he paints cars. There's a dusty wood and tin garage under this museum, and the docent has put his uncle into it. They call this aggression, but really it's so easy as she does it. But his uncle doesn't look the same there. His uncle with bold striped sweaters, full wild hair and beard, laugh big enough to fill a room, larger than life personality, looks very different in the docent's garage. To her, his uncle is a tiny uncle with a shaved head, brown Pendleton and Dickies, navy work apron and silver paint spray can in hand. He paints with that in place of a brush. The cars in the garage are smaller too. They're micro machines. And like them, the boy feels small and getting smaller. His hopes, his pride, all the world and its colors shrinking to a vanishing point because he knows what she means. I know what she meant. I couldn't expand upon these ideas fast enough. There is nothing wrong with painting cars, painting pictures of cars, or dressing like a cholo, but we are not all the same. You can't paint us all with the same brush, fit us all into the same stroke. Whatever the medium, there is nothing wrong with taking pride in your work. But what is wrong is for anyone to assume that we are a smaller people, a lesser people. It is wrong to assume that any one of us can't be acclaimed, can't hang in your museum. Give him the top floor because my uncle is an artist, a painter. His work has hung in galleries the world over. You can find him in the Smithsonian, see his mural in LA by the 101. And yes, he, like me, is a Mexican. My uncle is an artist, a painter who's been paid to paint cars that were literally bigger than the Mona Lisa. My uncle is an artist, a painter, and like me, he knows how to use the principle of diminution, which is making objects smaller in a piece of art to help create a sense of perspective. My uncle is an artist, a painter, and he doesn't get paid to talk about paintings. He gets paid to paint them with checks larger than your desperate attempts to try and reframe him. And I won't let any of you make me feel small about any of us ever again. Thank you. Well, that's 2 poems to kick us off here. All right. Thank you very much. So yeah, so once again, if you have just joined us, my name is David A. Romero, and I will be sharing a presentation today. Oh, how embarrassing, it hasn't opened. So I gotta find it again. So yeah, I will be sharing a presentation today, Use Your Allusions. And you will see that that is a really bad in-joke on my part, but you'll get to see the, inspiration and the articles side by side. So here we go. Let's see here. It's loading up. Yes. All right. Yes, I hope everyone is doing well. All right, here we go. There we go. All right. And now, okay, great. So here I am. So what is an allusion? Well, an allusion, of course, is it's designed to call something to mind without mentioning it explicitly. It's an indirect or passing reference, i.e. an allusion to Shakespeare. All right. So of course, the poster that I've designed, the flyer I've designed for this workshop is in and of itself an allusion. And it's an allusion to, and a bad pun at that, it's an allusion to an album cover called by the band Guns N' Roses, called Use Your Allusions, volumes 1 and 2. So layers here. All right, so let's talk about, why is it important to use allusions? Well, on one hand, you have the demand for originality, and the demand for originality demands that, with your art, with your poetry, with your craft, you want to have a signature style. You want content and form that people will recognize you for decades, that they'll start off by being able to compare your work to itself and to others. And over time, what they'll start to notice is that there are stylistic tendencies throughout your work. There are certain repetitions of subject matter that will define you, the issues that you talk about, the philosophies that you espouse, the worldviews that you'll have. When you talk about water, will you really mean this consistently? And stuff like that. Those are the things that will start to define you and need to define you. But really, everyone is a confluence of their influences. Everyone emerges from the people that they've read, from the people that they've watched, from the people whose work that they have consciously or unconsciously emulated. So, even someone like Shakespeare, of course, widely considered the greatest writer of all time, right, is a combination of all these different, influences. Even Shakespeare, you know. All right. So I like this quote, and this kind of is a good framing device. Is I was interviewed by this publication, the Roadrunner Review, and they asked me what are some of my favorite by, Mark Smith, who originated slam. I'm very inspired by Maida Del Valle, Mark Gonzalez were some of the first people I ever saw, Saul Williams. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. But when I think about sitting down to consciously write poetry, my mind always goes back to the classics. It always goes back to, some of these classic people that I'm going to be going over with you today. So Emily Dickinson, of course, we all know this poem, Because I Could Not Stop for Death. This is, man, what a classic, what a classic. So I'm actually gonna ask for a volunteer. We're gonna go old-fashioned school style. If I could have a volunteer to read Because I Could Not Stop for Death for us, and it'll be on the screen. So it's all good. So yeah, we have any volunteers? We have any volunteers here?
They also know how to be voluntold, so you can feel free to call on somebody.
Oh, great! I could choose someone.
Yeah, you can just go for it. They're used to it.
All right. I'm gonna start then. I'm gonna start in order then with Laughing Natalie there. And Natalie can go ahead and join us.
Okay. May I start whenever?
Yes.
Okay. Because I could not stop for death, he kindly stopped for me. The carriage held but just ourselves in immortality. We slowly drove, he knew no haste, and I had put away my labor and my leisure too for his civility. Keep going.
Yeah.
Okay. We passed. What? What? I'm sorry, you cut out.
No. Oh, sorry. Okay. So yeah. So please continue.
Okay. Okay.
Great.
We passed a school where children strove at recess in the rain. We passed the fields of gazing grain. We passed the setting sun, or rather, he passed us. The dews drew quivering and chill, for only gossamer my gown, my tippet only tulle. We paused before a house that seemed a swelling of the ground. The roof was scarcely visible, the cornice in the ground. Since then, to centuries, and yet feel shorter than the day, I first surmised the horses' heads were toward eternity.
All right, everyone, give Natalie a big round of applause there. Yeah. Not always easy going into some of the greatest works of literature cold. So I definitely appreciate it. It's very, very good. All right. So let me go ahead and ask you all, who have not, I'm always amazed that sometimes it is required reading. Sometimes it's been a long time and we've forgotten. I honestly, this poem was brought back to my attention some years after I was first exposed to it, and I believe that I had forgotten what it was about. So yeah, so does anyone have any ideas here from any of these students, these brave workshop participants? Let's see, any hands raised? Because I can just spoil. Obviously, I know what all the answers are here. But okay, let's get Marissa. What do you think?
About the poem or about like Emily Dickinson?
Yeah, what do you think that this poem, Because I Could Not Stop for Death, what do you think it's about?
I think like she's kind of talking about personifying death and being in a carriage with him and how like comfortable she seems with the idea of death.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That's perfect. Yeah. The most important thing that you touched upon there, or one among many, was personification. So that's one of the stylistic tendencies of this poem, definitely at work there. And yeah, it's about a character, coming to learn that she's dead. Oh, I even have the answers on the screen. Good golly. Oh yeah. And one of the things that also is going on in this poem is that Emily Dickinson is being coy with us. And I think that's really like an interesting characteristic of this poem. And actually, it kind of defined Emily Dickinson's work. Her whole everything that she created was this kind of this balance of intelligence and naivete. She was always playing innocent, or kind of like she was starting to become aware of things, and that kind of carried in her work. So yeah. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and read you a poem that I have written inspired by this one. And it's called Because I Could Not Stop for Money. All right. Because I could not stop for money, she kindly stopped for me. The limo held but just ourselves, fame, fortune, and glory. A black carriage, immaculate rims and tinted glass, stretching into eternity. Money and I cruised by the corner, where poets ciphered their poems long after the conclusion of the evening's open mic. The poets stood there as I once had, trading metaphors for similes under the dim lights. And onward, we passed locked gates into the land of grand estates. Once I had sat at the foot of the mountain, looking up, now looking down, the nighttime sea golden, twinkling lights below. I felt like I owned the night, wondered, is this what being on top of the world feels like? Felt my pen strike, like my hand had signed. Wait, what did I sign? Money assured me, I'll never put any limit on what you write. Soon there were cameras, and I smiled for the cameras, performed for the cameras, but fell out of favor of the cameras. Money said, come on, do the one that I like. You know, the one that gets the crowd hype. So I did it. All was flashes, performance to performance. Crowds flocked to purchase, rep the network, rep the label, millions of artists, all packaged and labeled. I don't know when I first put my hands up against the plastic. I don't know when I first realized I was trapped in my package. Money had made me into something cheap and disgusting, something to hang on a shelf or packed into a box. No artist, just some kind of product. The price of my integrity plastered over my chest. Since then, it's been hindsight. 2020, you should have known when dealing with money. But all things aside, the years on the inside have been all right. When all of your points of articulation are as amiable as an action figure to the whims of others, it's easy to adjust to life. There was only that one lonely, guilty night. It was in the store as the lights flickered off. It was when I first realized I could never again hope to rejoin those poets, still trading metaphors for similes under the dim lights. All right. So that's Because I Could Not Stop for Money. Woo! All right, so you see what I did there. Is in Because I Could Not Stop for Death, you have this character who probably suspects that she's dying, right? But she doesn't commit suicide. She doesn't go out of her way. So death comes for her and takes her, right? But even then, she's still kind of in denial over the fact that she's dead. You know, someone put it once this way. She said, you know, it's like The Sixth Sense, but, you know, with a poem. And instead of Bruce Willis, it's Emily Dickinson, right? So in my poem, my character, wants success, wants fame, fortune, and glory, right? But it's kind of playing in a similar way, kind of playing coy, like maybe I don't really want this. And then there's the moment where, his hand signs, he signs himself into a contract, signing his life away, and he kind of is confused by it, doesn't really know what's happened. And the next thing you know, Twilight Zone style, he's become an action figure in a store. So, that being a metaphor for selling out as an artist. Right. So, so with that, let's see here. Let's see. Let me make sure. See, now I'm doing the most amount of toggling that I've ever done in a presentation here. So I definitely appreciate your patience. I switch back and forth. All right. So we just go. Okay. So yeah. So what I would like for you to do, because this is a workshop, the first prompt that we're going to deal with here is personifying an object or concept. And I want you to think of it, or idea came to pick you up. Where would it take you? How would it end? Is it time? Is it money? Is it power? Is it fame? Is it glory? Is it, what, it could be all kinds of things that I, not even able to think about right now. But yeah, I want you to think about something that could come to pick you up, and what adventures you would go on together, and what would happen. And we'll give you about 5 minutes to work on this. About 5 minutes. I believe I just let in a Maggie Winders. Maggie, if you're able to hear me already, what we're doing right now is we're taking some time to work on this prompt. I'm the invisible man right now because we're supposed to be having quiet time. So thank you. All right, so I feel like a lot of you would be very much in the thick of what you're writing. Definitely not enough time to write an ending. But did anyone want to share what they had started working on? All right, so my next victim in order is Misha.
It's actually Misha, but you're good.
Oh yeah, Misha.
Yeah.
So Misha, yeah.
So I didn't truly write a poem per se, but I wrote down concepts of what I was thinking. So how I would start it is because I could not stop for family, and the answer to the first question would be it would come to take me to different skyscrapers, buildings, houses, bars, etc., where I would lose track of what used to be. And then moving on, it would take me to rooms where emotions would be strewn across the walls, and I would look in every corner and every crevice trying to find that strong connection again, longing for a recipe of solutions.
Excellent, excellent work, excellent work. I really love it captures what you were working on, your notes. It captures the floating, ethereal quality of the original work. So I think that's very important. There's a lot of layering of ideas here. So I think there's a lot of room for that to go in some excellent directions. How about Lexus? Did you work on anything?
Yeah, so I like did the kind of the same thing Misha did, but I didn't have like an exact poem, but I have concepts. And I really liked the idea that you mentioned of time and specifically like academic years, going from like kindergarten all the way to like college years and how much has changed. And I kind of wrote about how like when time would come to my door and pick me up, it would show me from my past and my young years and how important school is focused when you're like in kindergarten and going through high school, but then showing you now how much time has changed, especially with COVID-19, and how time is such a human construct and that we majorly rely on this idea of time in our society when inevitably like we can't stop time and we can't control it. However, we can enjoy the time we have, especially like with how much we take it for granted.
Yeah, playing excellent. Playing upon the anxiety of everything. Yeah, that's tremendous. And the positives and the negatives. Excellent, excellent. All right. So let's see here. So I'm gonna go back. We're gonna pick up here with the old presentation. All right, and we're gonna go over. So this, wow, Corky Gonzalez. So is widely considered the most important Chicano, that is Mexican American poet, a foremost figure of the Chicano movement, of the Chicanx movement of the 1960s. And he wrote a poem that is considered, one of the greatest American poems, and definitely the greatest poem of that movement. I Am Joaquin. So can I get a volunteer? I'm going to call, let's see here. I'm going to call Denise. Denise, can you read, we'll have you read. So I Am Joaquin, if you're not familiar, is a very long poem. So we're not going to have you read the whole thing, but I have some excerpts here. And if you could read just this page.
Okay. Yo soy Joaquin. I am Joaquin, lost in a world of confusion. Caught up in the whirl of a gringo society, I have endured in the rugged mountains of our country. I have survived the toils and slavery of the fields. I have existed in the barrios of the city, in the suburbs of the bigotry, in the minds of social snobbery, of in the muck of exploitation, and in the fierce heat of racial hatred.
Excellent. Thank you, Denise. Thank you. All right. And let's see, can I get, yes. Can I get Jenna? Jenna, please, if you could go ahead and read this page.
And now the trumpet sounds, the music of the people stirs the revolution. Like a sleeping giant, it slowly rears its head to the sound of tramping feet, clamoring voices, mariachi strains, fiery tequila explosions. The smell of chile verde and soft brown eyes of expectation for a better life, and in all the fertile farmlands, the barren plains, the mountain villages, the smoke-speared cities, we start to move.
Woo! Thank you, Jenna. Thank you. Oh, gosh, I love this poem. All right. All right. Alyssa, would you like to, if you could please read this page?
Do you want, okay, so La Raza, Mexicano, Espanol, Latino, Chicano, or whatever I like to call myself. I look the same, I feel the same, I cry and sing the same. I am the masses of my people, and I refuse to be absorbed. I am Joaquin. The odds are great, but my spirit is strong, my faith unbreakable, my blood is pure. I am Aztec Prince and Christian Christ. I shall endure, I will endure.
Woo! Thank you, Alyssa. Thank you very, very much. Thank you very, very much. So to make it clear, for the point of analysis, these are very much just excerpts of I Am Joaquin. This is an epic poem, and throughout this poem, he goes on many contemplations of identity. This is a poem that is very activist-minded and very nationalist-minded. Of course, this is coming during the point of the Chicano movement, and it describes a lot of the history and a lot of the cultural markers of us as Chicano people. And it's playing, one of the most interesting things about this poem is that it's playing about this contradiction, about this this terror of identities that pulls at him. So in this poem, he compares himself to both Hernan Cortez and Cuauhtemoc, who was a successor to Montezuma. He also compares himself to the tyrant and slave, an Aztec prince, and a Christian Christ. And a lot of these things are opposites. So what we're talking about here, so at the heart of this, for anyone who might not be aware, And you know, and it's important as us as raza, as gente, to be, you know, discussing these things as well. Is at the heart of our people is the split between our indigenous native ancestry and our European ancestry, our Spanish colonial ancestry. So in this poem, you know, he is embracing both. He is shining light on both. He's calling attention to the indigenous and the Spaniard within him, and combining these things, infusing these things, and creating a powerful thesis of identity. So I have a poem. I have many poems that are inspired by I Am Joaquin. Those sharp punctuated lines, the escalation, the describing of different locations and whatnot. But this is one of my signature poems, and quite obviously it has to do with my name. So you know, it's an influence there. And it starts like this. Called My Name is Romero. It happens every single night. Telemarketing Juliets, calling from their ivy-covered balconies, calling for their star-crossed lovers, calling, hello, is Mr. Romeo in? I'm sorry, Romeo went to go grab a burrito, Mercutio to cruise Whittier Boulevard, and Shakespeare to take some ethnic studies classes. In other words, fucker, Romeo isn't in. My name is Romero. I am not Italian. Centuries-old Spanish blood coursing through these veins, though my parents are not from Spain. And despite the Southern Californian accent that allows words like sweet and sick to tumble gracefully from these lips, I'm not a white guy. I'm a Mexican. My name is Romero. Romero like a brand of tortillas that escaped with Guerrero and Mission from the segregation of the ethnic food section into the main aisles of your local supermarket. My name is Romero. Romero like Archbishop Oscar Romero, zombie filmmaker George A. Romero, actor Cesar Romero. Yes, before Jack Nicholson, before Heath Ledger, a brown man played the Joker. They dressed him up in purple suit, green wig, and white face, though he would not shave. His trademark, suave and sexy Latin mustache. No, he was a Romero. I am a Romero. My parents had dark hair and dark eyes. When I was 7, my brother lied, told me that my father was the mailman. How could you be the son of our parents with your blue eyes and white skin? Well, brother, fucker, like Jerry Springer or Maori, the DNA results are in. I am a Romero, and I know what some of you are thinking. That I'm just another white guy trying to prove he's a Latino, or just another Mexican chest beating his chest, beating whatever reputation he has left in the process, trying to convince you that his family, his country, his nationality are better than you. Well, I know as well as anyone that we are all the children of Africa, roots of no single family tree, but of a flourishing forest that grows collectively towards a magnificent destiny, shining, radiating beauty. Just please close your eyes and you can see it. Fuck that shit. The name of this poem isn't We Are the World, We Are the Children. No, the name of this poem is My Name is Romero, because if you're not proud of who you are, then what are you going to be proud of? And if you don't know where you come from, how are you supposed to know where you're going? And I know one thing, that the name of my father, my father's father, and his father's father before him was Romero. Thank you. All right, all right. Oh, thank you, thank you. All right. So, in looking at that poem and looking at I Am Joaquin, we're talking about thesis. We're talking about taking elements of culture and of identity that might stand in opposition to one another and fusing them together. And I had this little, of course, there are allusions here in My Name is Romero at the beginning to Shakespeare, Romeo and Juliet, true story. People really do say that all the time. But yeah, so I want you to spend some time, maybe writing, maybe brainstorming. I want you to write a poem. I am. And I want you to reflect upon the different meanings of your names, or reflect upon maybe even a broader sense and talking about like what different identities do you have, do you belong to? Could potentially these things stand in opposition to one another? If you're writing about your names, what does your name mean? Where does it come from? What's the story of it? Why were you given that name? Have you chosen your own name? These kinds, have anyone's mispronounced or misconstrued, misinterpreted your name? So these kinds of questions, I think, are really important. So yes, please go ahead and spend some time on that. We'll take, about 5 minutes on that one as well. All right, all right. So welcome back. Should go ahead and let's see here. Where did I leave off? With Giselle. Giselle, did you were you able to work on any ideas or write anything?
Yeah, I was. So I was talking about my name. So my name Giselle. It's pronounced differently by my parents, who call me Giselle. Most of the time, my name is not pronounced properly, but people say it with a Z or can refer it in a different way. but most of the time, my name means different for many people. But for me, my name signifies a lot due to the reason behind my parents. Though I am not sure why my parents decided to name me Giselle, I do like the way they gave me the name they did.
Excellent, excellent. I think that was really amazing. Yes, yes. Mispronunciations are often a key to that, and reflecting upon that. And even there was a slight difference in the way that you pronounce. So this, even as a performance poem or a spoken word poem, could carry a lot of power in that way, with a slight, alteration and yeah, reconciling these different things. I thought that was really great. Nate, did you have a chance to brainstorm anything? All right, we got radio silence from Nate. How about Alexa? Alexa. Okay, yeah, Natalie, please.
So I actually attempted at writing a poem. Okay, and I'm going to read it, if that's all right. Okay. After a 6-inch incision and the gift of life was given to me, my mother gifted me and tied us together with her middle name, Marie, because I come from a really large family, and it's like my mom's middle name is Marie. And then I have a younger sister, but she gave me her middle name, Marie. So, and then like all my cousins, there's like one of them, and because I come from my mom's family side of 7. So I have a ton of cousins. And then a lot of the female cousins' middle names are Marie. So that's just something that I like. And I know that it's a very common middle name, but I just hold significance to it because it's the same as my mom's.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's really great. In my family, yeah, we're my grandfather was his middle name was Anthony, and my father's middle name was Anthony, and my middle name is Anthony. So yeah, things like that, heirlooms of names, can be really, really special and tying us into the past and into other previous generations. And yeah, I think that's really, really incredible. So yeah. So we're gonna go ahead because we're just storming on through these. Let's see here. Yes. All right. So yes. Actually, let's see here. What do I have? All right, I'm gonna go ahead and cheat. I know I promised on the flyer Maya Angelou, but I'm gonna cheat. I'm gonna skip ahead because we're strained for time here, and I'm just gonna go ahead and yeah. Does anyone have? Let me throw this out. Does anyone by any chance have stanzas of The Raven memorized?
I do.
Awesome, Cassie. Excellent. Please.
Just like the first part? Just as much?
Yeah, just the first stanza. If you have. Yeah.
Okay. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary over a many quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, as I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as if someone gently rapping upon my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. "'Tis only this, and nothing more."
Excellent, Kathy. Wow. How long have you had that memorized? I want to go ahead and ask you that.
Second grade, I got really into Edgar Allan Poe in second grade, and then my teacher was like, "What's your favorite?" And I would say The Raven. I used to have all of it memorized, and I'd say it really fast. And I think I managed to do the entire thing in like 45 seconds once. And so Yeah, my teachers. That was my trick in like elementary school.
Wow, that's really incredible. A round of applause, Kathy. That's so awesome. That's so great. I only got up to 4 stanzas myself, and that was in middle school. So elementary school, the whole thing, it's I believe 12 stanzas. Is that correct? Correct? You know, Cassie?
That sounds about right.
Yeah. So it's 12 stanzas long. So it's a pretty long poem. So that's really amazing. 45 seconds. You had to have been a speed rapper, or you could be if you aren't one already. You definitely have the gift of quick delivery. Yeah. So I wrote a poem inspired by The Raven, and it's called Basketball with Edgar Allan Poe. And so at the core of The Raven is this idea of this, the writer, this presence of the Raven that possesses this mysterious knowledge, right? So one day, like many days, I was playing basketball, and I'm not a very good player. I have very ugly form. There's a video for this poem, and you'll see how terrible my form is as a basketball player. It's pretty embarrassing, but I'm a lot better than I look. I'll say that. But I was playing by myself, and I was thinking I had a lot of anxiety about, and at the core of The Raven is fear. It's fear of the future and what's going to happen. And I had a lot of anxiety about my future. And I thought, well, what would happen if Edgar Allan Poe showed up, in this situation? How would I respond to that? What if Edgar Allan Poe was my Raven, So this is that poem. I'm going to have a little drink. Dusk falls upon the basketball court. Airplanes loom overhead, shooting hoops in loneliness when all of a sudden a strange thought trips. Bump, bump goes the basketball, rapping upon the asphalt. What if this evening I played basketball with Edgar Allan Poe? The poet appears suddenly upon the court, dark and heavy layered raven's cloth, hardly the proper garb of a basketball player, methinks. Still, he motions for the ball, and I pass it to him. He drives the lane towards the basket. In desperation, I move to block him. Edgar Allan Poe and I are playing the game now. Sweat and grit, anger and determination, win or lose, no draw. Bragging rights for eternity. And I've got all the advantage that being alive and a few good layups can allow. The Poe posts up, pump fakes his shots. In his wake, the backboard is transformed into a swinging pendulum, reminding me that I've been playing in this pit of imagination and mundane reality long before I ever played against him. Edgar Allan Poe is going to win. His every shot takes the air out of me, inexplicably burying me alive. My smack talk is grave. You are dead, poet. I am immortal. Poe shoots the basketball. You're just a zombie, I cry. I am immortal. Poe shoots the basketball. You are an emotionally disturbed nutjob weakling who should have been prescribed Vicodin amongst other things. We put people like you in loony bins. You can handle your drugs, your alcohol, your family, your shit. You need a probation officer and a therapist. Consumption took your incestuous wife from you, and you watched helplessly, knowing there was nothing you could do to stop it. Poe, never flitting, still is shooting. Pain and the terror of loss constitute my soul, poet. What are the contents of yours? He shoots, he scores. Forevermore, Edgar Allan Poe retires from the floor. At dawn, I rise to face his shadow, to be a writer, to be a poet, to at long last peruse those volumes of forgotten lore. Ladies and gentlemen, Edgar Allan Poe is immortal. That's why one night I let him beat me at basketball. All right, thank you. And so that's basketball with Edgar Allan Poe. So what I would suggest, I believe we're coming down to the end of our time. Now, I'm not sure if we can go over, but I think the idea was to keep this, pretty much an hour. So what I would recommend, if you want to write, poems, something similar to this, is to pick a figure that you idolize in a similar way. So you're all, or I believe most of you should be English students or, students of literatures. So to pick someone that you idolize, and imagine yourself in the middle of some activity, have them come into your world and slowly start to change it, and try to see if you can pack in as many allusions to their work as possible to give it depth and to make it, really ring for anyone who's a fan of their work as well. Bring them into the excitement and the joy of the adventure that you're crafting. And now you could either win, or you could either have this as a contest, and someone wins, someone loses, as I did. But yeah, the greater the contrast is between what it is that you're doing in the moment and what their work is about, what their work focuses on, the tonality of their work, the greater the contradiction, the greater the excitement produced, the drama, the stakes, and the humor, of course, can be. But yeah, so that's something to contemplate. So with that being said, in bringing this to a close, I hope I provided a number of examples of classic poems, ways that you can reinterpret these works. Now, whether it's taking the themes, the symbols, the plots, because very often we forget that a lot of the greatest poems ever written are stories. And that's kind of a lost art, has been, in contemporary poetry often. Is some of the greatest poems of all time were stories. They were, interesting journeys. So to take some of these plots, these elements, these stylistic tendencies, rhyme schemes, rhyme patterns, what have you, motifs, and use them. Try to think about interesting ways that you can use them. And this is a great way, any poem that you really love that might cover any, subject matter, that has within it the possibility of reinterpretation, and you bringing in that fresh perspective can lead to very interesting results. So yeah, with this time, I want to go ahead, and I believe there's going to be a Q&A session. So if you have any questions about the poems that I've performed, about this workshop, about being a professional spoken word artist, a published author. So yeah, this is my third full-length collection of poetry. My Name is Romero, published by FlowerSong Press. It's an emerging press in McAllen, Texas. We're trying to blow it up real big this year and all these years. So really, really exciting. We were just featured in Poets and Writers magazine. We're publishing Alarista, Luis Alberto Urrea, and U.S. Poet Laureate Juan Felipe Herrera. So quite a collection of authors under this imprint. So I'm very, very excited to be along with them. So yeah, and also I, was touring extensively throughout the country. So if you have any questions about that, any of that, please.
Could I ask a quick question? What I teach a lot of courses in our Spanish program on U.S. Latinos and topics a lot like you're talking about, identity, a lot of stuff on immigration. Are there poets or spoken word artists that in those veins that you would suggest for students interested in that? Or I have students do capstone research projects on poetry quite often. And is there somebody really great that you're reading now or that that would be a suggestion?
Yeah. Fortunately, I have plenty of people I can recommend to you in that vein. So my best friend and my closest a collaborator in poetry is Matt Cedillo. I'm not sure if you've heard of him, but he's been recognized as the best political poet in the U.S. He has performed all over the world. He writes extensively about these issues. A lot of my poems deal with these issues of passing, of pochismo, which is like this mixed identity. Am I proud? Am I ashamed? But his poems tackle these issues solely from the point of pride. They are as hard hitting politically as could be imagined. So if that's something that he writes extensively about that. There are other poets. Gris Munoz is another rising star. Is really phenomenal. Just wrote a book called Coatlique Girl, in which she explores issues of living on the border between Texas and Mexico, and she explores issues of violence, of sexuality is a big theme within her work, and parallels between the borders of sexuality and of gender and these physical borders, these transnational borders. So it's really fascinating in that way. And yeah, there are just so many, like I mentioned off the top, Maida Del Valle is someone whose videos, are really, really fantastic. I would definitely recommend checking her out. I'm not sure if she's published, many books, but she was really a huge influence on me as well in terms of mixing in. Yeah, I have a poem called "Make Me More Mexican," which is kind of, very influenced by one of her poems called "Ton Tactics," in which she mixes English and Spanish, specifically Puerto Rican, Spanish with a Puerto Rican accent or with Puerto Rican words, and attacking criticisms of the way that Mexicans, would pronounce things, or would tell her, that they're pronouncing things wrong because she's Puerto Rican. So yeah, I would say those are three.
That's great. Well, I don't just want to talk about other people. I want to talk about your work too. Could you tell us what you're working on now? What's a current project?
So I have, so my first book of poetry was called Diamond Bars, the street version. It's an ode to my home city of Diamond Bar, and it was self-published in collaboration with the Open Mic. And now I foolishly decided to write a sequel, largely in terms of that one was very haphazard. It was a lot of the poems that I wrote coming out of college and just kind of becoming familiar with the spoken word scene at the beginning and trying to figure that out. But this poem is very much more of a focused body of work. When I was presenting my first book out to a lot of people, they would ask me, what is this about? And I would say, well, it's a book of poetry. It could be about anything. It could be all about all sorts of different, but they really wanted to know, I want you to sell it to me like it was a book, like it was a novel. Like it was a novel. And okay, let me see, can I write a book of poems that's much more novelesque, in that kind of sense. And so that one is kind of reflecting upon, people I grew up with, things that used to exist that are gone. So there's a lot of nostalgia, a lot of, also more contemplations of ethnicity and identity in that one. And along that vein, I also have recently written a novel, which is a murder mystery that's set in suburbia, but the backdrop of it is in all of these issues of Spanish colonialism and the massacre of the native peoples within the continental boundaries of the United States. So the overlap within, the Native Americans living in California during this time of the Spanish ranch system, and how the Spanish ranch system overlaps. And there's going to be a prequel where it's set in this whole time. So Yeah, so I'm very, very excited about my upcoming work. It's definitely not as overtly political, but I have a second book that will be another book, The Latinx Giant, which will be an exploration of Central and Southern American Latin identities, and exploring the histories of the different nations and the different pronunciations of things, and yeah, cultural touchstones. So I'm really excited about that too. So a lot in the works.
It sounds great, and I definitely am going to order your books to look at for my courses for the future, to have students read or watch your videos, or maybe even invite you to come and speak to my class in a couple of years when I teach that class again. So
excellent.
Thank you. I'm gonna be quiet as the talkative professor and let the students. I know a lot of these students. They all have really good questions. So.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So what, out of like all the things that you could have gone into, what made you want to be like a spoken word poet and go into discussing like these kind of topics?
Yeah, that's a great question. Sometimes I wonder myself, did I choose? So spoken word is not necessarily a lucrative career field. You definitely have to be very passionate about it. And I was that in college. I was a very, very involved in activism, and I had also picked up a freestyle rapping. So I wanted to be a rapper, but I wasn't good at rapping. I couldn't rap to the beat. And then I discovered spoken word poetry, and I was like, oh, it's like rap, but there's no beat involved, so I don't have to worry about being off beat. So that's good. And then really what it was just getting my work out there for the first time. And I'd always really liked performing, but then I would often have stage fright and this and that. And what I really loved about this art form was that it was a way to, I don't know, I was just filled with a type of confidence that I had never felt as an actor, on stage. So I thought that was really tremendous. It was once I started getting paid to do shows and performances, and I had a couple books out, and I thought, wow, this is really working. This is really something tremendous, And I think after a certain point, I kind of hit that point of no return. A couple of years ago, I was a manager in the receiving department of a restaurant supply store, and I felt that temptation. Should I go on and have a natural, or have a normal life? But I actually met up with my friend, and we started talking about ideas for new books, and we talked about traveling the country again, traveling the world. So this year, for the first time in my life, I'm going to New York City, I'm going to Italy, I'm going to Guadalajara. So for the book festival there. So yeah, I really feel like there's a certain point where if you're a writer, you're going to feel that. You're going to feel that point, of like, where have I gotten enough validation to retire, or is the real world, the normal world, the world of rational people, is that calling loud enough to pull me away, from this passion that I have for writing? And I think, yeah, that different people we all have different points and different calls within that. And yeah, so I'll go ahead and ask you, then I'll follow up. So I feel rude. Marissa, have you felt, have you thought about a career in writing?
In high school, I took a few like creative writing classes, and like I really enjoyed it. we had some practice writing poetry, short stories, you know, all that fun stuff. And I didn't think I was gonna be good at it at first, and I ended up, you know, really enjoying it and kind of really getting into it. But I never really like thought about pursuing it or thought about going into it more. And I more thought about, as you said, the normal jobs. So I think for me, like after, like, you know, you had us jot down for 5 minutes, you know, and I really enjoyed that, and so I think I might, you know, get back into it as more of a hobby. But I haven't really thought about it as a career. But yeah, it's interesting.
Nice, nice, nice.
As a teacher of creative writing, my face hurts from smiling. This has just been such an amazing evening. And I echo Zach's comment about wanting to bring you back to campus. I'd love to have you come and talk to my poetry class. I am of the mind that one can be a banker or a doctor or a whatever and still be and also be a poet. And
Right.
that's what's so wonderful about creative writing, I think. It's different when it's your full-time your full-time gig, but your gifts are just so beautiful, and I'm just so grateful that you were able to be with us today.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yeah, I think this is about, it seems like it's about it, unless anyone else, you know, has any questions or comments. Thank you very much. I really hope that the castle, you know, I believe some of the members were here. Yes, I want to congratulate you and what you're doing. It's always, you know, a worthwhile and worthy effort in collecting work, in assembling work, in editing work, and giving people a platform for their voices, for themselves to be published. That's some of the first places where my poems were published were in high school and collegiate literary magazines. So I think it's really important, and for a lot of, you know, poets, you know, obviously. So it's very worthy work and important work. So I want to commend you all for doing that, and thank you for hosting me tonight. So thanks again to Dr. Nolan and Dr. Montgomery, and yeah, I wish you all luck.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you everyone for coming.
Thank you. And I'll say, David, one more thing. If you don't know the journal, the Chicano Riqueño Studies Journal called Chiricu.
Oh, okay.
It's published out of Indiana University, where I did my graduate work, and I actually was the editor of that for about 3 or 4 years when I was finishing up my PhD. And you can look it up online. Chiricu. So it was started by one of my mentors in the 70s, and it's called it stands for Chicano Riqueño Cubano.
Nice.
Chiricu. And they've raised their profile in terms of academic studies of Chicano Riqueño Cubano studies, but they have a very active section for creative writers. And it might be something for you or your friends and colleagues to publish, you know, a single poem in, to get some exposure, because it has a pretty wide readership.
Excellent.
At least in academic circles. You know, we're all nerds in academia. So I can't say that.
Yeah. You know,
I can't say it'll sell on Amazon, but I can say that it's a great venue, and the editors are fantastic. Their quality of their work is very good. And if you ever need a connection, you have my email, and I know the current editor as well, and he's a Latino history, U.S. history professor. And so if you ever need that connection, just look me up, and I'm happy to make an introduction for you.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I'll definitely follow up with that.
Awesome. Thanks so much. This was such a great Wednesday evening for me. So thanks so much for sharing with us and our students. And I'm sure we'll be in touch in the future.
Yes.
Definitely. Yes.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.